I want to speak to you today as if you're two people, each one of you. Because you are a present son, and you are probably a future father. That's a very complicated role to fill. And it has all kinds of varieties. Probably no two relationships are alike. But they do have some things in common. Being a father is the most important role I will ever play. And if I don't get that right, not much else matters. So said a man named Michael Josephson. I remember my father, probably about the first memory I have of him is at Lake Buell, which is north of here a few miles. And there used to be a water slide there, which at the time I thought was 500 feet high. And I saw guys going down, I thought they were hitting 85 miles an hour. It's probably 15 feet, 20 feet. But I was 3 years old. And I was scared of the water because I didn't know how to swim at that age. And my father said, we're going to go up on that water slide. You come down into the lake and water over your head. I said, no, Dad, no, I can't do that. I'm too scared. He said, no, we're going to do this. We're going to do this together. So we got to the top of the slide, and I was petrified. I looked way down at the ground. I looked down at the water we're going to go into, and I was scared out of my wits. But then I sat in his lap, and I felt his strong arms coming around me. And I knew that nothing bad would happen to me. I knew that he wouldn't allow it. He was my father. He would protect me. And he did. And we went down the slide, and I came out of the water with this look of satisfaction. I just conquered the world. I remember my father as being someone who was very quiet. He was not an effusive man. He didn't let his emotions out. And a son needs to have a father's approval. I think it's probably never phased. I don't think it really matters how old you are. I think everybody wants to please his father. Because the father's a role model. The father's a God. The father is the smartest person, the strongest person. You can rely on him. He'll never let you down. When you're at a certain age, you know this to be a fact. But you also want to hear something from your father. My father was not quite as good at that as maybe he could have been. And most of the praise I got was very short clips like, hey, you pitched a good game in Little League today, Dick. Wow. Did that send me over the top? Or, you know, you're getting a lot better on the saxophone. He probably meant I wasn't puncturing his eardrums anymore. But let alone those little things, I fed on them. They nurtured me. But I got more praise from my father secondhand than I did firsthand. Friends of his, I'd see, and they'd say, you know, your father brags about you when we're playing cards Saturday afternoon. He's always talking about you. And I would just fill up as if I was inflated. So you need this. The father-son relationship is a very, very important one. My father was an excellent athlete. He was great at tennis and baseball and basketball. And he did what I think is maybe the most important thing a father can do, which is spend time with me. He taught me how to serve a tennis ball. He taught me how to kick a football. He taught me how to pitch a baseball. He taught me how to fish. One day, I came home from 5th grade in tears because we had just gotten into fractions and decimals in math. And I just wasn't getting it, and I felt stupid. It seemed like everyone I went to school with, they were all getting it. Yes, Miss Hammond, I see how this is done. 1/2 plus 1/2 equals 1. But I just didn't see it. So I came home, and my father said, what's wrong? And I said, I am stupid. I'm just a dummy. Everybody else is getting this, I'm not. So he said, well, you're not going to school tomorrow. I said, what do you mean? He said, we're going to stay home, and I'm going to work with you, and then you're going to get decimals and fractions. And he did just that. He took the day off from work, and he stayed with me, and by the end of the day, I knew decimals and I knew fractions. And what more can a father do than to help a son like that? My father grew up on a farm about 6 miles from here, 103 years ago. He died about 29 years ago. And he still hasn't left me, and he never will. He'll always be in my heart. But he was different than I was. Greatly different, really. I always wanted to travel. since I was a little kid. I remember I grew up on the other side of Tom's Hill, which is right over here, and I kept looking at that hill and saying, what's on the other side of it? I want to go up it. But I was too young and I couldn't. My father, on the other hand, was born and raised, and he died 5 miles from where he was born. And except for a few Caribbean cruises, which my mother talked him into, he didn't really travel. And he didn't want to. And it was fine because he loved this area, he loved his friends here. And when I was old enough, I took off. And for years, I hitchhiked back and forth across the country. I hitchhiked back from Alaska to here. I always wanted to go to someplace else. Now, this could have been a problem because hitchhiking isn't usually looked upon with great pleasure by parents when their sons do it. And he tried to dissuade me, and he always wondered, how can you trust some stranger who pulls over on the side of the road for you? And I said, Dad, most people are good. Almost all people are good. People will pick me up, take me home, and give me dinner and let me sleep on their couch. And he said, I think that's not right, but go ahead if you want to do it. Go ahead. It's your life. So I did, and he accepted it. He may not have praised it. When he got out of the war in 1945, he came back with thousands and thousands of other men who'd been fighting. And of course, there's a glut then on the labor market. What do? He hadn't gone to college because the war had cut right into his college, and he'd gotten married during the war. So he came back and he took a job down in Bethlehem, Connecticut, sewing together airplane seats for a while, and realized, I got to do more than that. So he started a business. And still, when you go through Canaan and you go up over the hill, over the railroad tracks, you'll see Curtis Insurance up there on your right. Speak about differences. I knew he wanted me to take the business over. And I tried. I went into it for 3 months. And I sat at the desk, and I talked about insurance rates and levels of risk. And I can't do this. It's a good job. My father had started a very sound business. It's still going today. My cousins are running it. I probably would be making more money there than I am here. But I couldn't do that. It was a disappointment to my father. I know. Although, as I said, he's not an effusive man, and he never said, boy, I really wish you'd do that. Although I could sense it in him. And it was hard for me. And I wouldn't have done it if I thought there was any other way I could live my life. This is not to say all fathers are good. Some fathers are not good fathers, and that's a shame. Some fathers are abusive. Matter of fact, I had a boy in my class 10, 15 years ago. We were talking about how we were punished when we were younger, and he said, I lived on the 11th floor of an apartment building, and one time I broke something that was very, very expensive in the house. And my father took me by the ankles and held me over the balcony, 11 stories above the street, by the ankles. He said, you're not going to do that again. Imagine what that would do to you. Imagine your father holding you 11 stories above a concrete sidewalk. I don't think that's good fathering. But fathers can drink too much. Fathers can have temper control problems. Fathers can work too much. Fathers sometimes can get a woman pregnant and then just take off and never see that person again. So fathers aren't good. And when a father is really bad, the painful thing is that the son, the young son, will take it personally. It's my fault somehow that dad gets so mad at me. It's my fault that dad hits mom sometime. It's my fault that dad gets drunk and falls down on the steps. Somehow you take it. As you get older, though, I hope you come to realize that it's not your fault. It's not the son's fault. It's the father's problem. And it should not reflect on the son, and all too often it does. I am now a father and have been for 29 years. And when I became a father, I realized that this is an important job. I can't just do this part-time. And yet, it's very hard. At the time, I was teaching here. I had a business on the side. I had 2 or 3 people hired for it. I was building my own house. And I wanted more than anything to spend time with my kids all the time, but it was limited, and I did what I could, and I built a playhouse for them where I was building the house. And you always feel like these hours, these days are precious. They go so fast. And before you know it, you are, like I am, looking at a 29-year-old daughter and a 27-year-old son who are out in the world on their own. And those times have passed, but you have to make use of them when you have them. And you have to do, I try to do, what my father did for me, which was to spend time with them, to make them laugh when I could, to make them feel secure and safe in the house, to make them know that they are very fortunate to live where they do, and to know that many people are not that fortunate and that they should help them. This is what you try to pass on to your children. And you may think it's easy, but it's not. It's a hard job. It takes a lot of thought. I can tell you one other thing about being a father. Choose a great woman. She will help you correct the mistakes you make. And when you're going the wrong way, she can tell you. And you may not agree with it, but you will see the reason behind it. Another thing is this, I meant to say it earlier. You think your father is the strongest person in the world, and while you're 3 years old, he is. There's no one stronger. But you start to see as you get older that your father is a man. He is immortal. He makes mistakes. And you have to accept these mistakes, because you can't, when you get to be the age that you guys are, you can't expect your father to do everything perfectly. I remember when I was 3 years old, I would come and jump on my father at any time. At any time, I weighed 30 pounds. But then one time I was 6 years old, my father snoring on the sofa, watching the Sunday football. And he's sound asleep, but as he said, he was watching it. He didn't. I was 6 years old. I came running from across the room, and I leapt on his stomach when he was sleeping there. And I hurt him. He wasn't ready for it. Now I'm 60 pounds. I'm not 30 pounds anymore. Your father has faults, and that's not to say he's a bad father at all. It's to say he's a man, he's a person, and you have to accept that. Well, look forward now. Look forward to how many ever years it's going to be before you're a father. And let me tell you this. Don't miss the birth of your children. Be there in the room with them. Be there with your wife. Yeah, it's a little messy, you know, but it is the most miraculous thing to see your child coming out of the woman you love. You'll never be the same after it. So look ahead to those years when you will be a father. See now what you think a good father should be. What your father is to you. All his strengths and whatever weaknesses he may have. And put yourself to this job now, because it may very well be the most important thing you do in your life. Thank you.